All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Miss Julia White. She is our guest speaker today. Thank you guys all so much for taking time out of your day to be here as well. I hope you guys can ask any questions you want. She can hear you the whole time. Don't feel, just interrupt if you have a question, and we'll certainly have some time at the very end as well. And again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go on and shut the door, and Julia, you can take off.
Hey, thank you, Julian. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk with you about, careers in science. And so I've looked at some of the previous sessions, and hopefully you've participated in or listened to some of those previous sessions. Great information. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm going to talk about my multiple careers in science, but how a science background enabled me to get to where I am now. And I'm also going to spend a little bit of time talking about where I am right now, which is in the U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratory System. And I just can't say enough about where I work, the people I work with. This is the best job ever, period. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got a slide set. I come from a research background, ergo, I must have slides. So a little bit about me. You can read the boilerplate on the other side of the screen. Essentially, I'm the technical operations manager for a major Department of Energy project. I facilitate operations across the different parts of the project. We're basically a very, very large research, development, and deployment project where we're creating the infrastructure for the world's largest supercomputers. And I'll touch on that as I go along. But it was kind of a circuitous route to get to where I am right now. So I graduated in 1982, back in the dark age. And I, think my experience at Carroll was an effective one. But as you maybe have heard from previous speakers, it wasn't so much what you learned in high school and frankly, even in college. It's that you learned how to learn, that you become focused and, you know to ask questions, that, how to learn is important in your career at Carroll and then as you proceed in your life. So careers in science, there are many, many careers in science. You may think, oh, well, I'm a researcher, I'm a biologist, I'm a chemist, I'm a physicist. And yes, all of those are true. But there are many careers that either require or are greatly enhanced by a background in science. So a bachelor's degree in biology, chemistry, physics, what have you. So those include, for example, becoming a patent or intellectual property lawyer. You are required to have a technical degree before you can become a patent lawyer. And obviously you're going to be going to law school as well. Science writers, oh my gosh, talk about a hot career right now. We cannot hire science writers fast enough because they are so much in demand. And for those people, having that science background is incredibly important. Project managers in my field are very much in demand as the federal government is investing more and more money. You talk about the $1 trillion budget. A lot of that is coming to research and development. And because of that, we need project managers who are knowledgeable in science areas. But let me transition to my career. And I've actually had several careers in my life. So my career as a researcher. So I went to college, followed that with graduate school, got degrees in chemistry, and did a postdoc for 3 years, carried out computational research. And I'll talk to that in more detail. Then I made a right turn and went into scientific publishing. So I worked for a physics journal, and that was wonderful in having a very broad perspective. So whereas my career as a researcher was kind of narrow and very deep, narrow in the sense of looking at a particular topic and understanding it extremely, extremely well, being the expert in the world in that particular topic. When I transitioned to publishing, oh my gosh, all of materials science. And I got to be essentially a jack of all trades and master of none in understanding and working with a very diverse array of researchers, facilitating their efforts to publish their work. And then finally transitioning to more of a project manager role. And so, yet different again, needing to have that background in science to be effective in communicating across very, very large projects. I talked to my nephew, who is a college graduate now, and but has a better memory than I do of what you may be thinking about right now, and what I did right and what I did wrong when I made a decision about college. So I knew that I like to read. I'm very analytical. I like processes, and I'm always asking questions. So going to college was a given in my family. You will go to college. But what was different for me was that nobody in my immediate or extended family had pursued a career in science or engineering or anything remotely related. And that was a challenge. And, I kind of took the plunge and said, that's what I'm interested in. So, yep. I went to Earlham College, which is about an hour's drive west of Carroll, and graduated with a degree in chemistry. So what did I do right? What I did right was I picked the right size school for me. And what I mean by that is I visited two schools. I visited Earlham College, a small liberal arts college. And one of the things they're known for is this small student faculty ratio. So, you would have your teacher's attention. And I visited Ohio State University, the other end of the spectrum, where I knew I would be one of maybe 500 or more students in a class. And I chose the former. I chose the one where I had a more immediate relationship with my instructors. It's not to say that's the best choice. It's just I made sure that I had a choice. When I was in college, I did a summer research internship. Incredibly important, if you're pursuing a degree in science, to do that type of activity. And the last thing I did, what I did right, there were many things I did right, but the ones I'm calling out here, I changed majors. And you might say, why is that doing something right? Isn't that, acknowledging a wrong decision? Well, it was good for me because I had the confidence to recognize after my freshman year that a degree in biology was just not something that was keeping my interest, not something I wanted to continue to pursue, and took the plunge and changed majors to chemistry. And that was a right thing to do. Don't keep on with something just because you've made the decision to think, oh no, I need to stick with this. Trust your instincts. What I did wrong, I mentioned that I visited Earlham College, small liberal arts college, and the Ohio State University. And I really should have visited more places, given myself kind of a better idea what was out there. So it wasn't a catastrophic, what I did wrong, but it would have helped. Something I'm going to harp on through the remainder of this slide set is I didn't network with my professors during my college career, which was crazy because I picked a college that had a great, student teacher ratio. They were there, they were accessible. And I just did not reach out, say, hey, let's grab some coffee. Let's, tell me about your career. Tell me about what opportunities might there be for me. And so that ties into the last, what I didn't really do right or what I did wrong. I didn't think enough about post-college, and that would have been a natural thing in talking to my professors in college. It's like, well, what are the types of careers available to people with a degree in chemistry? That would have been a great segue for them. So into my senior year of college, decided, well, what the heck is next? And I decided, well, graduate school seems like it's a good opportunity. So I applied and was admitted to graduate school and carried out research. Again, now when you go to graduate school, you start to focus on specific things. So I was in graduate school for chemistry, but specifically for computational chemistry. What is computational chemistry? Computational chemistry means that I stayed out of the wet labs where I might be putting my hands on instruments, mixing chemicals, etc. using spectrometers, things like that. Rather, my area is unique to chemistry as well as other science fields in that I used computers to carry out my chemistry research. So researchers over the past 40, 50 years have developed software applications that effectively model chemical type reactions. And so I used those applications to do chemistry modeling as part of my graduate school career, and I really loved it. So I went to Indiana University and graduated with a PhD in chemistry. So for that experience, what did I do right? One really right thing, and something I strongly encourage you to think about for college as well as for any post-college career you might pursue. I got scholarship funds and a research stipend. So I basically, while I had college debt, I walked out of graduate school with no graduate student debt. Now that's pretty unusual, but it was definitely something very right for me and something for you to think about in your college and postgraduate career. The other thing I did right was I got up, I got out of my office, I gave graduate seminars, and I began publishing papers. And that's key to a career in science, is understanding the publication process, being able to put together effective research papers. And the other thing I did right was I graduated in 5 years. And once again, you might ask, why is that doing something right? 5 years, that's a long time. For graduate school in science, graduating in 5 years is actually pretty par for the course, or at least it was when I was going through graduate school. And in the area of physics, I have heard of students being in graduate school for 7 or more years. And I think deciding to go to graduate school, there are many right reasons to go to graduate school, but talking to your advisor and knowing, here's our plan. And my plan is to get out in 4 or 5 years. That's the right thing to do. What I didn't do right in my graduate career, again, won't harp on this, but I really should have visited, a few more graduate schools and around the country before making a decision. And can't emphasize enough don't do the wrong thing, which is what I did. I stayed in my office. I was in the moment. I was loving the research that I was doing in graduate school, loving putting together publications. But for the most part, I kind of stayed in my office. And that was so the wrong thing. I'm surrounded by, colleagues, other students. I'm surrounded by faculty. Oh my gosh, I should have just gotten out of my office, attended some other seminars, not in my area. And so moving on from that, but I also didn't really think of, postgraduate school too hard. And I should have thought about it a little bit more. So this is my last slide along these lines, but postgraduate school, I did do a 3-year stint at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Washington State. Beautiful part of the country, gorgeous area. That's fairly standard for people who graduate, with a PhD. You then do a postdoctoral appointment. And at that point, having finished my postdoctoral appointment, I had essentially, typically, 3 choices. I could have done another postdoctoral appointment. That would have been standard. I could have, begun looking at a career in academia. So, doing a postdoc after graduate school sets you up for pursuing an academic career as a faculty member at a college or university. So that was something I could have done. I could have pursued research either in academia or, at industry, could have done all that. Those are very standard careers. I chose the atypical path. So I chose a position at a physics publishing company, so a publishing journal, and rose through the ranks there, and then decided at that point to head back into more of the research environment. But instead of being a researcher, I started my 3rd career as project manager. So what did I do right postgraduate school? What I did right was, again, having the courage to choose a different path. I had so many people questioning me. You've made this investment in graduate school, 5 years, 3 years as a postdoc in research. now you're going to do something else. You know, people said, why are you doing that? But for me, it was the right decision. Right decision because, oh my gosh, instead of being the expert in a very narrow field, I became expert in a broad array of different science fields, and correspondingly developed now I'm doing things right. You know, I've got this huge network of research contacts based on my career in the journal and fostering a network of professional contacts. So what did I do wrong? You know, while I did make the right decision to choose a different path, you know, I didn't leave soon enough. And that, by that, I mean my position with the journal and going back into the research area. So again, my recommendation to you, why I'm saying this is, don't feel like you don't have options. You have as many options as you want, you know, with a career in science and other careers. Factor in your geographical location. So while I really, really, really enjoyed my career in publishing, I really, really, really did not enjoy being on Long Island in New York. It just ended up not being a good fit for me. So, you know, factor that in. That's part of your, you know, your future is deciding not only what you're going to do, but where you're going to do it. And for me, I probably, you know, in hindsight, would have been to my benefit to stay in research a little bit longer. But, you know, I've ended up in a very good place, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So going back to this slide about, you know, my myriad careers that were enabled by my background in science. So as a researcher, I carried out simulations. So I used computer to carry out chemistry research, or in this case, material science research. So as a postdoc, I looked at aluminosilicate. What's an aluminosilicate? Well, an aluminosilicate, if you look at the upper left-hand image, basically are rocks. So aluminum, silicon, oxygen, composed, you know, many rocks. And the types of rocks in particular that I was doing research on are called zeolites. And what's interesting about zeolites to me and to major businesses, especially the oil and gas industry, is that they're catalysts. And so what you're seeing on, you know, the upper, you know, next to the rock is a structure of an aluminosilicate, and it's a porous rock. So those pores that you see are where hydrocarbons that the oil and gas industry are very interested in are moving their way through this porous rock. And the inside of the rock has surfaces that are essentially catalyst or catalytic surfaces, where you maybe heard of, you know, catalytic cracking, or you know, various types of, how do you get from, you know, a huge hydrocarbon to something that can be put into the gas tank of your car? Well, it's done by catalysis, and catalysis where these hydrocarbons are broken into smaller hydrocarbon chain fragments. And zeolites is one of the things that the oil and gas industry used to do that. And my research was to understand, what is the size of these, you know, pores? What's the surface of the pore look like? How can that help facilitate what the engineers and the experimentalists in the oil and gas industry are doing? So that was, you know, a lot of my research as a postgraduate associate. As I mentioned, I decided at that point, at the end of my postgrad, you know, opportunity, I decided to go, you know, on a different route and into publishing. So I worked as a senior editor for Physical Review B. It's one of the many, many journals, research journals with the American Physical Society. And I had to write down here because it's been so long, you know, the different types of research articles that we published. So we studied, you know, magnetism, superconductivity, semiconductors, surfaces, nanoscience, et cetera. All of those different types of research topics we published. And I loved it because people would send me their articles and I would look at them. I would determine whether or not it was a good fit topically for our journal. And then I would identify the reviewers to provide, you know, that peer review to help me decide if we were going to publish that article. And it was great because I got to my research network then became, across the country. I've had a huge database of researchers that I could draw upon to say, hey, could you publish this work? So, but because our time is limited, let me move on from that. I did that for 5 years, Long Island, New York. It was a great experience in terms of, broadening my network, but really wasn't happy on Long Island. So I decided to transition back into a research environment, but instead of as a researcher, I did it as a project manager. So 2 of my projects that I've been involved for the past, probably 12 years, the Insight program and the ECP. The Insight program, this is getting back into my computational area where I used computers to do simulations for my research efforts. Well, with the Insight program, I received proposals. So instead of receiving manuscripts, as I did with the APS, I received proposals from researchers around the world who wanted to use the world's largest supercomputers. So basically, take your laptop, multiply it by about 1 million times, and put that all together in one big computer. Those are the supercomputers that we have at the DOE laboratories. So I allocated time on those supercomputers for people around the world to carry out their chemistry simulations, biology simulations, earthquake simulations, astrophysics simulations, anything that you might think of, I covered. After basically, getting that program to where I wanted it to be, I decided, yeah, I'm going to do something else now. And that's the exascale computing project. So the exascale computing project is what I'm doing right now. I've been doing for the last 5 years. We're a 7-year, $1.8 billion project. And, people's eyes start to get big, $1.8 billion, holy cow. And, it's awesome. It's so great to be associated with this project in a leadership position. So we're basically preparing ourselves, preparing the infrastructure for that next big supercomputer. So right now at where I am at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, we have the second most powerful supercomputer in the world, period, hands down. And what we're preparing ourselves for is that what's next, and it's going to be an exascale computer. And just to kind of give you an idea what the heck is exascale? Exascale is essentially, it can do 10 to the power of 18 operations per second. So I'm not even going to try to compare what does that mean. It's really, really big. So our project is a partnership of 6 national laboratories. And more specifically, we fund 80 research and development teams. And that translates into about 1,000 researchers that we fund across the country. And we do things like application development, so that chemistry code, that biology code, that subsurface transport code, et cetera, engineering codes. We're working on that, as well as software and other efforts. And what I do based on my background in science is that I make the connections. I look at this one research and development team who's doing research in earthquake simulation and say, have you talked to these other guys? Have you talked to the subsurface folks about what they're doing? I make sure that people know what's going on. I also share research achievements. So that $1.8 billion that we get, it's your taxpayer dollars, or at least your parents' taxpayer dollars. And, I make sure that the accomplishments that we're achieving get to the right DOE sponsors so they know what we're doing. And I also manage project risks. So in the interest of time, I'm going to switch to my last few slides. I've said national laboratories a number of times, and I think that's so important for you to know what that means, because when you're thinking about your career and you're looking at your peers and your peers' parents, and you probably got people who are working locally, and that's awesome. That's great. They're working in industry. Maybe they're working at University of Dayton. Maybe they're working at Wright State in academia. But there is an opportunity to work at U.S. national laboratories. So I think it's the best of both worlds in terms of versus academia and industry. In academia, if you become a tenured faculty, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur in many ways. You write your own ticket. You're writing grants, but you're also publish or perish is very much true in academia. You're only as good as that next grant that you bring in, those next set of papers you publish. Industry is a great gig too. It's not something that I've pursued, but it is definitely an opportunity depending on what you do. You might have a wonderful, 6-figure salary, and that's great. Your work-life balance may not be what you want. It depends on the company. U.S. National Laboratories is awesome because you're doing research and development, but it's kind of like academia in the sense of, you're writing your own ticket. You're identifying what you're doing for research. And what I love about the National Laboratories is that here at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, I can walk across the street. So a 3-minute walk, I can be talking to nuclear physicists. I can be talking to material scientists, all of these people doing their different research activities and understanding. And that's maybe my next gig is, somebody that I'm talking to, across the street. So let me talk about the U.S. Department of Energy National Labs, of which Oak Ridge National Laboratory is one. So we're around the country. In my career, I've worked at, you see up at the Washington State Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. I have colleagues and I have visited and traveled to people at Ames Lab, Lawrence Berkeley. Argonne National Laboratory is a huge partner with Oak Ridge National Laboratory. That's a 5-hour drive from you up in near the Chicago area. So across the country, we also have additional energy related efforts and national laboratories I work with quite a bit also around the country. These are people I interact with on a daily basis. I am always on the phone with people at these different locations. And in fact, what my career has also given me is not only a chance to work at different places around the country and collaborate with people at different places across the country, I've also had international opportunities. I love my job. I get to work with people everywhere and it's just fabulous. So let me talk, I promise this is my second to the last slide. The types of research at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. So if you could see my mouse, computing and data analytics to exascale and beyond. Okay, that's me. That's my project. So that's a huge part of what we do at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. We also carry out biological and environmental system research. Isotope production is a big part of what we do at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Nuclear science, Department of Energy. So nuclear science is one of those tenets of energy research and so forth. So last slide. If you're thinking about a career in science, based on what I heard from previous questions, I thought I'd go ahead and lay some of those out right now. Yes, you will need a firm foundation in mathematics, period. After that, take classes in things that interest you, chemistry, biology, physics, etc. Build on that math background. But please, please, please do take computer science classes. I don't care if you're interested in physics, biology, etc. You will never regret it if you take classes in computer science. That's always your plan B. Computer science is so hot right now. You can work anywhere. You can work remotely, virtually, if you have experience in computer science. So go with your passion, but also be smart and have that plan B. People who succeed in science, I'll kind of give my 2 cents about that. We're analytical, we're focused, dedicated, and what people don't think about, succeed in science, you have to be able to communicate well. You have to have that. You have to be able to persuade either government or non-government people, even in industry. You have to be able to persuade people that what you're doing, what the research that you're doing is valuable and important. So communicating well is key. An advanced career takes time and effort. You probably read that, I graduated in 5 years. Yeah, that's a lot of, that's a good chunk of your time. And there's no work-life balance in an advanced career. There just isn't. You will be focused on, doing your graduate research. But the flip side is that has opened so many doors for me and can for you. And in many cases, it's prerequisite for careers in science. At the national laboratories, our people have PhDs. It's not to say there aren't opportunities for people with master's or even bachelor's degrees, but in your career of interest, kind of think it through. What might you need to have? And I'm going to go back again to this idea, finally, my last bullet: network, network, network. Talk to people, get out of your office. I don't care if it's virtually or physically, but talk to your teachers at Carroll, talk to your professors at whatever college or university you go to. In your work career, talk to your colleagues and employers. And it doesn't need to be an intense conversation. Just ask them about what they do. Ask them about, what do you think about this funding opportunity that maybe they've been talking about in a seminar. I kid you not, that those conversations are going to lead to your next project, your next grant, your next job opportunity. So whatever career you decide to pursue, science or otherwise, network, network, network is huge. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides at this point, and I hope we have some times for questions, but let me open up to you guys. What are your thoughts?
You decided to go into publishing. What caused you to, what kind of inspiration did you have to make that switch from more science to publishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I didn't make translate, but just, make it louder. I think I just decided that in my postdoctoral career, the number of people I could talk to about my work became narrower and narrower and narrower. And I really liked more of a collaborative type of an environment, an opportunity where I could be talking to a lot of different people about a lot of different things. And what I found was that, with my research, I was getting very, very limited in terms of the people I could collaborate with on my research topic, and, versus looking for an opportunity where I could be learning and being effective in an area covering lots and lots of different topics. So I went from, master of what I did to kind of jack of all trades in many different fields. And that was very appealing for me.
I'm interested in getting not PhD in chemistry, but going into the chemistry field along with the health field. What kind of classes do you take to get your PhD in chemistry?
Right. So to get a PhD in chemistry, again, it kind of depends on, which area you're going to be pursuing. So you'll be taking some basic courses, undoubtedly, not just in your field of chemistry, so health sciences, but you'll also be taking, physics background. If you've not had, sufficient mathematics background, you'll be taking that as well. In graduate school, I took organic chem, which you would probably be taking at that point, which is, it's a hoot. It's very interesting. Analytical chemistry is probably something you really want to look into as well. So with analytical chemistry, there are so many different things that you could do there, but that's basically where you start getting into using spectrometers and other types of tools where you're doing analysis on materials themselves in chemistry. So I'm not sure, because I'm not as familiar with health sciences as a career, what in chemistry, might benefit you, moving in that trajectory. But I would think, at a minimum, you would be taking classes in analytical chemistry and organic chem.
What kind of Carroll values do you still use?
That's a great question. What kind of Carroll values do I still use? I think the values that, I got at Carroll and have served me remarkably well and effectively throughout my career are respect for other people, and, values in terms of appreciating what other people have to offer, and, looking at what they do, and also looking at ways of helping other people succeed. Selfishness is not part of what I learned at Carroll, and certainly not part of, my career path, being very, very centrally, just what am I going to do? What can I get out of something? So at Carroll, it was really more to do with, just a very, a broad base of support that I like to continue throughout my career.
DOE jobs, are they found on usajobs.com, or is there a DOE website you would recommend somebody look at?
Okay, I think the answer is yes. Yes, we post everywhere. So wherever you might expect to see, just any other type of job posting, you would see, U.S. Department of Energy job postings. I believe we do have specific posting areas, and Julie, I'll make sure I send that information to you.
That would be great. I think that's just a really awesome way of trying to look out and see what's available as far as careers and what they require.
Absolutely.
Also, are you a civilian, or are you, what are you for DOE? And again, I'm a civilian for the Air Force. I'm just wondering.
That's a great question, because I was confused too when I first, started looking at, am I a Fed now? It's like, no,
Yeah.
you're not a government employee, you're not a Fed. I kind of skipped through it, but on one of those slides, it kind of indicated how the national laboratories operate, the DOE National Laboratory System. So in fact, Oak Ridge National Laboratory is managed for the Department of Energy by a collaboration of the University of Tennessee and Battelle, which is headquartered in Columbus, Ohio.
Mhm.
And that's how all of the other national laboratories work as well. They're not going to be the same partners. So where I used to work in Washington State, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, it's managed for the U.S. Department of Energy by Battelle, which is located, as I said, in Columbus, Ohio. So 95% of the population at the national laboratories are employees of those entities. So I'm not an Oak Ridge National Laboratory employee, nor are the other 5,000 of my colleagues here at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. We are UT Battelle employees. Likewise, when I was at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, I was a Battelle employee. So nope, you're not a Fed, you're not a government person. You're an employee of whatever contractor is managing the lab for the Department of Energy.
So your funding is much safer than mine.
Yes. That's an important thing. Another cool thing about the national labs is, where's that funding coming from?
That's right. One last quick question, and then I know you guys need to move. Internships.
Yes.
If someone wanted to pursue an internship at the National Laboratory, where do you post that information?
I will send you the link, and just kind of end with, we love interns. And it's a wonderful opportunity to explore another part of the country, to get into a setting where you may be going to lunch with somebody from, India, Europe, etc. It's a wonderful, eclectic environment where you'll be working with people from lots and lots of different parts of the world, as well as lots and lots of different topics, that I've already kind of alluded to. So yes, internship opportunities, absolutely. And I will make sure Julie has that link. Wonderful.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to come here. And Julia, thank you so much. This has been just a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to have you part of us today. And I look forward to seeing everything you send to us. We'll make sure we get all of that posted on our website as well, so that you guys have access to all of that information. And Julia, is it okay if the students here want to reach out to you personally? Is it okay if they do that?
That is absolutely okay. Please do. Please do. I know we only kind of touched the surface. I know you probably have other questions, but that's absolutely fine. And Julie, thank you for the opportunity. I really, really enjoyed coming virtually and speaking with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.